Okay, so here we are, Miss Preity Upala.
Namaste. I'm so honored to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's so cool. Like we were talking about earlier, how this is taking place. I met you in an Uber ride,
Yes.
and instantly we hit it off. We had a super high vibe conversation, and it was funny because I think it was like a pool, so other people were
Yes.
coming in and out and
Yeah.
like catching what we were talking about. They
Bits
were
and
probably
pieces. We were
like,
in our own bubble, right? Own energetic karmic bubble. But that's how life is. It was really
yeah,
meant to be.
you attract people that are similar to you when you start to, get in touch with yourself, and it's really cool how that seems to work. You are such a inspiring person. You've done so
Oh,
many things.
thank
I was
you.
reading up on you earlier, and then just from
Yes.
our last conversation,
Yes.
like you've dipped your hat in so many areas of life. So you started off as like an investment banker, is that right?
In Sydney, Australia, yes. After I graduated from university, I was very young, and I started working in Sydney in the investment world and consulting world. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't my dharma in life. I wasn't inspired. I wasn't fulfilled, and I
Mm-hmm.
knew that there was more to life than this. I was very young. I was barely in my early 20s, and I'm very blessed to have had such a spiritual awakening at such a young age. The early 20s is very, very young for people to wake up and say, this is not what life's about, and I'm meant to be elsewhere. And that's also when my spiritual journey started. I think the dissatisfaction with the material and the professional world and my life at the time forced me to go within and really get hooked on meditation and yoga and really go within. And very
Mm-hmm.
quickly after I started doing that, I started listening to my inner self, and the answers really came. It was quite an emotional turn for me at the time because it was all very new. Yeah.
Yes. Well, now, was this sort of a powerful moment, or was it like little drips of like, is this really who I am? Is this what I really want to be doing? Like, I know some people go through their own awakening process in different ways. For you,
Yes.
was it like this powerful realization, or was it just kind of slowly over time, or how did that look for you?
I think the whole dissatisfaction period, I'd say it was about 6 months. And in the beginning, it was like tiny little droplets of, something's not right. What's going on? I'm not happy. This is, of course, when I was working, because I had I had to roll out something for one of these big banks. And when that project finished, I had an option of coming on a full time on board, and I didn't want to do that. I was more happy to be an independent contractor because it
Mhm.
paid a lot more, and I'm an independent agent anyway. So I sort of said, no, 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 I just want to be a contractor. So they said, well, we'll have to wait for another project for the bank or whatever. So I said, okay, well, I'll just find another position with another company or whatever. I was very qualified. And that's when it wasn't happening. And at first I think my ego really took a hit because what the hell. But
Mhm.
and then it just sort of, I think I had this deep feeling that something was beyond me. This isn't about me or
Mhm.
my interview skills or my qualifications. I think there's something else going on here. And I had this beautiful experience where I was going for an interview one morning. I was on the train, and there was this man who was sitting across me, and I had not noticed him, but the whole ride, which was maybe half an hour from where I stayed to the city, he was staring at me apparently. And then when the train stopped, I got off and he got off too, and he said, excuse me, but you have the face of a seeker. Have you ever tried meditation? And I said, no. He said, I really feel that you need to start because I feel like the universe has something wants to tell you. And
Wow.
he gave me the name of a meditation center which he goes to, which actually happened to be in my suburb. I could walk there, So that day I did my interview and it went very well. Came home, I went to this place, and that's the first time in my life that I meditated. It was profound. It was
Mhm.
emotional. I think I was crying. And then I think I went there almost every day for months,
Yeah.
And that's when they encouraged me, and it was a chakra meditation place, very amazing. And
Mhm.
they taught me to listen to your voice. And it was tricky at first because is this ego? What is this?
Right.
But then you learn to discern. And there was one powerful experience. I was at home and I did have this deep meditation. And that's when this little voice said, you're creative, you're artistic, you need to be on the global stage, you need to be doing something with all the gifts that you have. And then it just went off, and I opened my eyes and I thought, holy crap, what was that? It was a voice. I had never heard that voice before. And anyway, that's when the real journey started, and things moved pretty quickly after that.
So let me ask you this, because I was in this place, and in some ways still am.
Yeah.
Like, you go to meditation, you start to tap into this inner voice, you start to realize there's more for you inside of yourself than what you've been doing. Did you just completely leave that old world, like the investment banking world, and then dive right into like passions that you had, things that you wanted to do? Like, how did that work out?
Soon after this particular meditation, I think I went to a retreat. I went to a couple of things, and I was doing yoga. And this was, honestly, it was a very short period of time, a few months. And then I just, one day in my heart, I made a decision. I want to leave. I want to jump in for 100%, and I did that. So for me, it was boom, boom. And I'm very intense that way. It's all or nothing.
Yeah, so me too.
I made the decision in my heart, and no sooner had I done that, all these doors started opening, and I got called by this all random things. This agent who was like the best agent in town. Somehow he called me out of the blue, and I got into the best acting school in Australia, and I was working, I was studying, I had a great agent, blah, blah, blah. I mean, within the space of 6 months, boom, 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 it was all happening. And then I randomly, one day someone called me and they said, we're an acting school in New York and we really like your look, and have you thought about Hollywood? And we're meeting people in LA because we have scholarships for our course. And I went to that and I met with them. Then I went off to Thailand for a few months. When I came back, my dad told me that, when you were away, somebody from New York called. I think you should call them back. So I called up this number and they said, congratulations, you won the scholarship to study in New York. When do you want to start? And this was all within less than a year, I think. Mm-hmm. It happened very, very quickly. So that was it. I was like, no turning back now.
So just real quick, when you say I said yes to myself, I jumped in, I went all in.
Yeah. Yes.
What does that mean? I think there's different ways to interpret that, but what did it look like for you to like actually jump in and say, I'm doing something different and here we go? Like how did you go about that?
So, some people, for a lot of people, I think it's more action oriented, right? They need to physically stop something and physically start something. People who often go to motivational seminars, it's all about the action for them. Yeah. I am not like that. I am an emotional and intellectual and an energetically sensitive person. For me, I can do all the things that I need to do. It don't mean nothing until or unless I make the decision within me. So for me, it's more subtle than that. It's more quiet, but it's the decision, the power of my decision making is in my heart and soul, and then in my mind. Yeah. So there I have to make the decision, and I have to have total peace with a choice or a path, and then the action will come anyway. Because doing the action without that, you negotiate, I think, with your heart sometimes, and also with your mind, to be honest. And that's the decision making for me. So no sooner had I done that, then things opened. Before that, I think I was searching for what should I do, whatever. It's futile,
Yes. And the reason I asked you that is just because sometimes when you make that decision, right, you're like, I'm going all in, I'm not looking back. I am going to expand in the way that I know I can, and I don't really know how it's going to show up, but I'm going to put all myself into it. Then there's sometimes I know for me, it got followed up by like, oh shit, where do I start now? Like, I feel like there's so many different places I can go. It almost feels like overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, where do I start from here? I'm in this new place. I get this blank slate. Like what's the first move that I make? But it sounds like from what you said, it's more inspired action where you do the internal work and then those things just sort of show up and then you just kind of trust in it and you guide yourself that way. Inspired action type of thing.
Yeah, and I think when you're true to yourself, your inner self, I think usually the perfect way shows itself. We are always in the way, right? We try to get in the way, we try to force things a certain way, and the universe usually has a very beautiful path, you know, if you're lucky enough, blessed enough, I guess, for you. And I believe with most people this is the case. It's ready to roll it out, but you have to let it. So you have to receive it and allow it and get yourself out of the way. But it's very frustrating when there is no light at the end of the tunnel, or when people are asking you some interesting questions and you don't really know how to answer. So I think cutting off the noise and peer pressure, social conditioning, all these things, I certainly had to. And when you do that and you just focus on the truth, and when you're present to the source, that's when things beautifully appear. And it's funny because now that it's happening again. I feel like I have completed one cycle since I moved here, and I feel like it's re-emerging again, where the universe is refining my path even more. And it's now doors are opening, new doors that I didn't ask for, very interesting doors. And it feels very peaceful and joyful in my heart. But that is an indicator that it's the right thing for me. Because if you have angst, if you do get an opportunity and you're indifferent, or you have some angst about it, it's, yeah, sure, it showed up, but it's not for your, maybe it's even meant for you, but I mean, is it your highest expression? You know, is it why you came here? You know?
Yeah. Well, you've had a lot of doors open up. I
Yeah.
mean,
And different too, very diverse. Oh my God.
So you're like this Hollywood actress,
Yes.
TV producer.
Yeah.
You have your own business. You're an international speaker. Are you still
Yes.
writing your book right now, or did that already come
Well,
out?
a couple of things with the book, very interesting. The book is almost done. I'm speaking to publishers at the moment, but you know, it's funny. The book was, I think I mentioned it to you. Maybe it's a bit like The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. So
Okay.
my book is called The Eternal Gift, and it's the, I guess 10 or 7 different spiritual gifts that we can give to ourselves. That was the initial premise for the book, and I've written, it's partially written, you know. Now, in the last few months, I think a lot has happened with me where I'm almost questioning, because these original gifts were just sort of, I thought let me take it from various faiths and make it like interdisciplinary, or ancient wisdom from all around the world and so on. But I think I'm more fluid about it now, because I had another intuitive idea that perhaps instead of having it from various wisdoms and faiths, maybe just make it from a particular source. Because I think that's what most people do. They say, okay, these are 10 gifts, and they usually all come from the same place.
Yeah.
They're not so, I guess, I don't know, it's not an amalgamation of various wisdoms out there. So I am very fluid in terms of the context can change. I still want to keep the title and the book that, okay, this is a self-help book on how can you be joyful and live a peaceful and fulfilled life using these ancient techniques. But perhaps those techniques can come from a specific place. So I'm going to be speaking to the publisher, and we have to have an honest conversation about what's going to work, because they would know how things sell and all that. But that's the one book. But I've had, just even the last 2 months, I've had some other ideas for like at least 2 other books, you know, and these are much more controversial, and I think they're on another level in terms of, I think my first book is the more benign one. The other ones are, I mean, if everything works out, it could be, I don't know, it could be one of those books where people would have different reactions to it, especially one is quite political and stuff. So, but hey, you know, they've come through, you know. Yeah.
I remember the political side of you was strong when we were in the car that day
Yeah,
having
yeah,
a
but this book is
conversation.
not about that kind of politics. It's more about geopolitics and stuff. I
Yeah.
shouldn't even say political, but it's to be honest, it's more scary stuff like you know well, it's war related and all that, and some of the pain that's occurred and all that. But it's an important story that needs to be told, and I don't think it's been told
Yeah, it's bringing
enough.
awareness
Yeah.
to that
So
stuff. One thing I wanted to ask you, this is something I'm working out in my own mind because
yeah.
I'm trying to free myself of more limitations. And when I
Yes.
see successful entrepreneurs and people that are just so powerfully walking their path,
Yeah.
the question that comes up for me is like, how are they doing this? And so I wanted to know, like holy shit, all of these things that you're doing, the TV, the speaking, the
Yeah.
business, the beauty pageants you've been involved in, the book stuff, like did you from the beginning have sort of like connections that helped you get into these things, or did you just kind of start from the bottom, you
I
left that banking world and then like these things just came into your life through like intentions that you put out, or like
yeah.
how did that all unfold?
But that's a great question. I had absolutely zero connections in
Wow.
anything that I've done. I mean, the best compliment I received was, I think I met someone once and I had given them my card, and this was several years back, but they Googled me, and then they called me and they said, holy crap, do you have like a team of 10 people who do PR for you? You're everywhere. I've picked up so many things about you all over the press and international this and that. And
Hmm.
I was like, no, there is no, it's me. It's all blood, sweat, and my tears.
Okay.
And it's a compliment that it looks like that. Like, wow, there is a force behind this person. And it's very like spread out and stuff. It's a lot going on. I'm very proud to say that I've done everything on my own merits and with my own work. Everything has been trial and error. I look
Hmm.
back and I think, wow, it looks like a perfect strategy was there and everything worked, just fell into place. Nothing fell into place. There was no place. There was no plan. It's crazy. When I moved to LA, I bought a one-way ticket from Sydney to LA. I had never been to LA before. I didn't know anyone. I didn't even have accommodation. I just had a little suitcase. And I had, of course, was a school where I was supposed to study. That was 2 days from the day I landed. And I landed at LAX, and most people would be like terrified. They have nowhere to go. They don't know anyone. And LAX is not such a great airport to land like at midnight.
No.
Very dicey. And I landed. I was like, bring it on, baby. It was. I felt the Shakti. I really felt spiritually connected right from the day from the minute I stepped out of the plane. I felt connected to this land.
Hmm.
And I took a shuttle from the airport to I was staying, I just told the guy, just take me to a motel in the Studio City, which is where my school was, where I had to go the next day. And he took me to some crappy days in motel where I stayed for one night. And that night, actually, on Facebook, someone had invited me to they said, when you land in LA, call me. And I did. And he said, hey, there's a red carpet event in Beverly Hills. I can come get you. And this was like midnight, and I said, sure. So this complete stranger rocks up. I've never met him, some African-American guy, big guy. And he took me in his like SUV. We went to the Beverly Hills, and we walked into this amazing party. And then after 30 minutes, he said, look, I'm going home. I'm done. Can I give you a ride back to your hotel? And I said, are you kidding me? No, I'm going to stay here and party. And oh my God. And that, you won't believe it, but that night at that party, first night in LA, I was speaking to different people, but one of them happened to be my future roommate. And
Wow.
I moved in the next day because he
Whoa.
ended up giving me a ride home to my hotel. And he said, what are you going to do for accommodation? And I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out. And he said, well, I stay in West Hollywood and you can stay at my place until you sort yourself out if you like, just for
Wow.
free. So the next day after I went to my college, whatever, and he came to get me. I had my stuff ready. And then after 2 weeks, he just said, just stay here, don't even pay rent. And I mean, nothing was going on. It was just kind person. He turned out to be super connected as well.
Mm.
Although I didn't work with his connection so much, but he knew people. But that's the journey of my life. It's been magical, but I've been fearless though. I think most people will be scared, and they don't go for it, and they just don't show up alone. uh, I do, and that's when the magic, like, I travel alone. I don't,
Yeah.
I have no fear in that way. So that's never stopped me from amazing things happening to me, because I'm very open.
Yeah, because you seem like you have a really good sense of who you are
Yes.
and your message, and then you just go around and connect with people and give that to them, and then it just goes from there. And the next thing you know, you're getting invited to do
Yeah.
like speaking events in
Yeah.
Dubai and go to these
Yes.
different like summits and
It's true.
entrepreneurial thing.
Because you
Because when
you
you
can't even plan these things. I mean, you can try. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. And boy, I mean, 10 years ago, it was very organic. Now I actually am very intentional with, okay, I want to speak here, I want to do this, I want to do that. So there is, it's intentional now, but it still doesn't mean it. Many of the things that I reach out for and submit, they don't work out, and
hmm
still those magical things happen for me all the time. So it
yeah.
helps me to not take myself, hey, you have to do your karma, right? You have to do the action. Of course you have to put forward your effort and your intention, but it doesn't nothing is guaranteed. And the stuff that does come to you, you have to have gratitude, I think, and humility,
For
for sure.
sure. Yeah. Okay, so when you do your speaking events and just kind of your overall message that you like to share with people, what is that? What does that look like? What do you find yourself speaking to people the most about that you're the most passionate
Hmm.
for?
This is so interesting, because I have actually spoken at various places around the world on completely different topics. And it's so bizarre, but that's a bit of that's me. That's like brand Preity is very diverse and very international, and just there's a lot going on. And I've spoken at the Women's Economic Forum. I was talking about, globalization and things like that, a little bit more serious stuff. But then I've spoken to an audience about spirituality. And then I was in Vietnam last year, where that was a very high-end event with like 500 top CEOs around the world. And that was cultural diversity, and specifically language and culture, and how it's so important to preserve this stuff, and how cultural diversity can now become a business asset and a business tool, whereas it used to be a liability for a long time.
hmm
So, these talks and the topics come to me very organically. I was invited to speak in India on AI and Hollywood and AI and stuff. That so all these things come up, and when they do, I'm like, it's meant to be. And a lot, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of research myself. I love it. My
Yeah.
first love is, I think, academic research, because as
Yeah.
a student, I did a lot of that, and I wrote papers that were published and cited and stuff.
hmm
So I love that. So, but it's funny, because my talks, I think now I know what I want to speak on. Of course, one can speak on various things, or, but I think for me, it's, becoming very, this is a part of the churn I was talking to you about earlier, where I think I'm uh, taking it a little step higher, and really not, I mean, it's all good what I've done so far, but there's some more serious things out there, and bigger things, bigger fish to fry, I would say.
Yeah.
And you want to take it to these, that's when the big, I love these, the intellectual dark web. I mean, I'm sure you're a fan of
Oh,
these
I love
people.
all that stuff
These
too.
these are my
We could nerd
people.
out on that for a while.
They're so ostracized, I think, in pop culture and stuff, but they are huge, and they have a huge impact. And it's a very cultish thing. There's so many of them across the world, and there's a
hmm
common theme, I must say, on social, political, even religious, spiritual viewpoints. You can see a real similarity. There's a thread there, right? Of like, these people think alike in a certain way. They think a certain way, and so you have to. I think at some point you have to be honest with yourself about, these are my political viewpoints, and I
Yeah.
will be authentic. I mean, I think you have to be a little careful, not just in Hollywood or in politics, but just in the world now, because it's like now the whole world is political, right? This is happening in China, in India, and Russia, and Brexit, UK, EU. It's like everyone is opinionated.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of I think a lot of it is emotion. They don't
Yeah.
know how the world works. They don't know the truth of the way of the world.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and
but
and
many
they're
do. Yeah, yeah.
well, and they're parroting, something that another
Yes.
person said. And
Yeah.
in the Hollywood world, it's really
Yeah.
bizarre
Oh
because
gosh. Yeah.
young kids especially, when they see someone on TV, whether it's on a news channel or even like in the movies, or even like a celebrity comes out and speaks about a certain topic in the world, people really like take that as
Yes.
truth. And the media in Hollywood especially has such an influence over people that
Yes.
in a way, I mean, in a lot of ways is toxic.
Yes.
But it's like you have to stay rooted in your own truth. And if you're not grounded and if you're not knowing yourself in deeper levels,
Mm-hmm.
these types of influences will have a massive impact on you. And you'll be saying things that you don't even
Believe in
know
or
much
even know
about.
what they mean. That's right.
Yeah. And you'll just continue someone else's message and
Yeah.
never really question, like, is this my own thing? Because in this world right now, and we talked about this that
Yeah.
day in the car, I feel it's so important to add your own unique,
Yes.
special
Yes.
flavor to the soup of the world. And there's so many people that aren't doing that, but when people like you are, and
Yes.
then I'm trying to do this, and a lot of other
Yes.
people I know, that is going to invite other people to start doing that. So these crazy emotions that we're seeing all over the place in the academic world, and
Oh wow, I've got thrown into that world very recently. I was not looking for it because my academia stopped, I think, 15 years ago when I had graduated and stuff. I decided to, get into the private sector. But now I think it's very karmic for me. It's coming back to me in a very big way. And I think I'm going to be writing papers. And a couple of a few amazing things that have happened to me recently is I was appointed to be on the steering committee of a university. It's a spiritual university. It's going to be the first of its kind in America. And they've been up and running for several years, but I think they want to revamp everything, the courses, and it's all spiritual. So it's, you can do a PhD in yoga if you want. You can do a master's degree in that, in Ayurveda and all that. So it's specifically a university that focuses on ancient wisdom and especially on Vedic sciences. And this is my lineage anyway, something that I'm knowledgeable in this area. And I had met with the chairman, and it just all sort of came together, and very quickly I sort of escalated and was very honored to be. Now I'm on the board or I'm on this amazing steering committee with some of the greatest scholars in this area. Everyone's a professor and so on. And I've always wanted to do a PhD anyway, so maybe it's going to come through this. I don't know, but I'm certainly going to be doing lots of speaking, writing, and research. And this is like a part of the churn. It's added on top of my another layer. I had the Hollywood thing and all my, being in the public eye and speaking and writing, but now it's this academic stuff. But then, yeah, as you mentioned, there's so much bias in especially Western academia. It's owned by the neo-Marxists. They rule that space. And funnily enough, it's not just in the US. Somebody should write about this, but just like most of mainstream media around the world, again, has such a left-leaning bias. Even all the great academic institutions anywhere, pick a country, honestly, in the humanities and arts department and psychology and religious studies and all that, it's all left-leaning people. They have a certain way of thinking, and if you are conservative or if you think a different way, they don't like it. They will stop you from scholarship, from publishing. It's really vile and nasty out there. And I'm only just learning about this, so it's very interesting.
Is it weird for you to be in Hollywood and to be in that culture, to be like this spiritual sort of awakening person and to be, you know, grounded in your truth and to be the type of person that you are. Is it hard for you in that world? Is there a lot of other people that are starting to step into that? Or
I think, you know, it's funny because if I had a choice to pick between someone who is very materialistic and very off the world and off the body, no, never done any spiritual work in their life, you know, they are who they are,
Mhm.
versus someone who's a little half-baked, you know, just had a touch of something and think that they're all that. Honestly, I'd go for the first, because I think the first kind is not pretending to be something that they're not.
Mhm.
And they're not saying that they're evolved, nor do they honestly want to. And
Yeah.
I actually respect that. You know, when someone says, hey, I love meat, or I drink, or I gamble, whatever, hey, I respect you, you know who you are. I think you actually have more integrity in yourself, because you are who you say you are, and your
Mhm.
actions actually reflect that. The other kind are not. You know, they say they're one thing, they do something else, or they have very limited knowledge and limited spiritual experience, and yet they think that they're all that, and then they do virtue signaling
Mm.
or posturing, or you know, I mean, I really have a bone to pick with anal vegans. You know, oh my god, there's so many of them. Just the other day I was at this event, and I had this gorgeous handbag which was given to me as a present from someone. It's an expensive bag. I'm pretty sure it's real fur.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think it was a very pricey one. So this stranger came up to me, and she's like, you should be ashamed of yourself, blah blah blah, is that a real, you know? And then she said, I'm vegan. And I'm like, excuse me, lady, I'm Hindu, all right? We invented veganism, so please don't lecture me about vegetarianism, because my people have been vegetarians for 5,000 years before you were ever around.
Yeah.
And India has what, 600-700 million vegetarians on the planet. I mean, we worship animals and nature, so don't lecture me about that shit. And I'm vegetarian, you know, I'm pure veg. I have been my whole life. It's just that someone happened to give me this, and I just thought it went with the dress. And maybe it's not even real, I don't know. But you cannot impose and judge, and that happens a lot in LA, I've
It's just
noticed.
never going to work. You're
Yeah,
never going to transform anybody or change their opinion when you take that approach.
yeah, it's
It's never
abrasive.
the right way to do it. You know, even, you know, as you say that, I'm like, yeah, I'm against the fur industry.
Yes,
I think it's pretty brutal,
it's
you know, that
brutal,
they kill
yeah.
animals for their fur. But
But
if I saw you with that bag,
you're not going to judge me like, oh, she's a horrible person, and like, give me a
no, if anything, I could go up and have a light
conversation. Yeah,
conversation with you and get to know you a little bit, and then we
yeah.
could get into it. Oh, so like, what is your feelings on
Yes.
this thing?
And then
Like,
you find out, oh, wow, this person is really against animal brutality and is a vegetarian, just
yeah,
happened to be
or
wearing something
even
that
if
someone gave it to them, you know?
yeah, even if it was just like, hey, I'm just curious, you know, I was wondering if, you know, what your thoughts were on animal products, things like real fur, like in a very neutral way, right? Like in a loving way. You're not trying to impose anything. You're not trying to make someone feel smaller or lower than you. You're not standing up on your pedestal, you know, up on the podium, and you just have a human to human connection in a conversation. That's the only way that anyone's ever going to look at something differently, you know?
That's right. So for me in Hollywood, your question, it's challenging, but the challenging bit is not that, oh, Hollywood is such a materialistic, shallow place. That's a superficial challenge that honestly it did never bothered me, because I think I was always much deeper than that. And
Mm,
I always, I think, saw it for what it was. So it's not like I was, you know, dumbfounded, or I was like, what? Nothing shocked me. I think it's
mm-hmm,
the other side of the sort of semi pseudo spiritual, or also the pseudo charitable philanthropic. That's another world, you know, where they just show up to all these galas, and then they pretend to that's another world.
mm-hmm.
You know, Hollywood always wants to, all these celebrities want to tie in with various charities, like, oh, I'm for water, or I'm for this, or
But not
but
actually do the work and get in
no,
the trenches.
some genuinely
Yeah.
care a great deal, because I go to a lot of these events, and you see the real people, real celebrities, and
Mm-hmm.
just real citizens who honestly care, and a lot of good work has been done, a lot of money has been raised.
Yeah.
But you see the other side. And now there's a third element where it's this woke people, or this sort of, they think that they're so political hip, and that they know the way to run the world, and what's going on, and how governments work, and how power is centered and distributed and all that. They're clueless, and I see a lot of that in California, in Hollywood.
I bet.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's challenging, I think, for me to deal with those people. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. LA is a nice little mix of those different archetypes of people. Absolutely. I've run into a lot of those different types myself. Just shifting gears slightly here.
Yeah.
What's spirituality to you, and what is following your Dharma? What are your thoughts on those things?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. That's the eternal question, right?
Right.
So spirituality, it's so funny, because I think what a lot of people, this is my opinion, but I think a lot of people, when they talk about spirituality, when they use that term, especially in the West, I don't think they're actually talking about spirituality. They may be talking about mindfulness, or they may be talking about, it could even be a religious thing,
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about peace and being a good person. That's not what spirituality truly is. Spirituality is realizing that you are not the mind or the body, but the
Mm-hmm.
soul within, that is, eternal. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge concept to grasp, because if you believe that you are not the mind and the body, and that if the soul is eternal, it means that you have got to believe in a concept like reincarnation and rebirth and stuff. I mean, that a lot of all the Indic faiths believe in that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whether it's Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, or Buddhism, they believe that there is reincarnation, there is samskara, which is your karmic pattern, which doesn't
Mm-hmm.
end and die with you in one lifetime.
Right.
These samskaras travel with you for the length of your soul's evolution, and
Mm-hmm.
you will incarnate as many times as you need to, until your soul liberates from the ego and the constraints of the world, and
Yeah.
that is called moksha. And that
Mm-hmm.
is called enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very different look at spirituality.
Yeah.
And if you speak to a Buddhist monk or a Hindu priest or a scholar, moksha and samskara and atma, which is the spirit, these topics will come out. So when people in the West go on about spirituality, you have to have an honest conversation about, but do you believe that you are not the mind and the body, and that when you die, your soul is still there and it's going to come back possibly as something else? And do you believe that you've been here before?
Right.
They may not agree with that, so that's a very tricky conversation to have.
It is.
But
Yeah.
it's an important one.
It is, and I consider myself a very spiritual person. I've always
Yeah.
been drawn to that, outside of religion, like what in identifying what boxes have I put myself in, what
Yeah.
limitations have I imposed on myself. And then this is another topic I wanted to get into. It's like, for me in my life, when I forget that I am an eternal point of consciousness and awareness, I suffer a lot. And I very much limit myself. But when I have those moments of remembering, like we talked about earlier, going for a walk in nature, or getting deep in meditation, or even just conversations like these, where the feeling inside of you kind of lights up, and that's like the true essence of who you are. All of these ways, when you tap into that, it's like then you just, like, all the suffering kind of dissolves away and you're in your truth again. And then when you come out of alignment with that, that's when all the shit starts. And that's when your body, because our souls are like inhabiting this body and infused into it. So it's holding all the wisdom. And when we have these thoughts that put us into what you said earlier, the Maya, the illusion, that's really our essence, our soul saying, hey, you're coming out of alignment with who you really are. Bring yourself back to truth. And your body's trying to tell you that.
Yes. For sure. And then you asked about Dharma. So Dharma is literally, it's called the way or the path. And I believe that it doesn't necessarily have to have a huge implication, but I think that everybody has a specific path that they came here to walk on this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime, and they have to do that if they truly want to have peace, joy, and fulfillment. But for some it may be to change the world, and for others it may just be to have two beautiful children and bring them up in the world and just be a good citizen. So not everybody has to have this earth shattering dharma to do something huge for the world. I think that's another myth, because I would honestly say that 99% of the people in this world, they don't have that. Their purpose of life is not for that. The real people who are great or who have changed the world, and a small group, and it continues to be it's always 1 out of 100 that goes that way and does something big. Of
Yeah.
course, I think it's growing, but I think you have to be mindful that maybe your dharma is just to be a happy person, or to be a good parent, or a good child, or a good partner, and or a good employee, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
To know that. So for me, my idea of spirituality is that I do what I came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I do have it's a bit tricky because it doesn't sort of go in with my whole, like on paper, you'll think, oh, this woman, she has this degree and she has this work experience, and she could do blah, blah, blah. But then I was built for something else. And that's very tricky to try to explain to people who don't think the way we do, that, oh, there is a higher purpose in life, and to try to, explain to them that it may look like this, but I am really supposed to be doing something else, and I'm going to go for it, even though it's very nebulous and it's
Yeah.
challenging and there is no guarantee, and it may still, I may not get there ever, but I think the pursuit is well worth it. And I have a lifetime, and my goal for this lifetime is to attain moksha. And I do believe that I'm an old soul that's really been around for way too long. And I think I need to get it this time, because I am not interested in coming back. This is not supposed to be a joyride. This is like, you're here, you didn't get it last time. You're back here. It's like detention.
Can I tell you
So
my thoughts on that really quick?
yes, what?
Because I think I'm also a fellow old
Yes.
soul. I think in a lot of ways we are our own ancestors, and we've done a lot of work over time to get to the point where, the world is shifting, and we're going
Yes.
from a place of lower vibration and density and forgetfulness and violence, greed, corruption, all of these things. And we worked our way up to this path of enlightenment, where now we can start to create almost like a heaven on earth. So I feel
Yes.
like right now is actually a very special time to be here. And I think people that maybe are more spiritually aware or
Oh
have higher
yeah.
desires to change the world, like, are here
Yes.
very specifically to help bridge that, to help bring in that energy to create that type of world that's more connected. It's all about unity. It's all about self-expression and integrity and coming together and realizing that we're all souls on this journey to enjoy this physical experience and to honor each other and to create community and help each other do things that we love and express ourselves in the deepest way that brings the most joy. I think we're entering into that time. So it's like, because I can definitely sink myself back into that thought of like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is the last time around. Like, I want to get it this time. But I feel like I do want to come back, because this is just going to keep getting better and better as we keep evolving and as this energy keeps spreading. And, if the way that we're speaking, the way that we look at it is, it's like, oh, we've been playing a huge role in this and we're part of it. And of course we'd want to come back, because it's like the graduation. It's like the celebration of all the work that's been done, finally culminating. And we're at this in-between period right now, but it's moving in that direction.
Well, I think the world is at its highest vibration ever in its evolution, in a way.
Right.
Or at least in the past, 2,000 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I truly think that 5,000 years ago,
For sure.
people possibly were more evolved, but, there was a
Definitely.
degrading, and now we're sort of coming up. So at least in the last few hundred years, this is the highest vibrational planets, right? We've seen that's why people are evolving quicker. More people are finding their purpose, and the spiritual community is huge now all around the world. There's a big family there
Mm-hmm.
supporting each other. And you also get the other side where you either get the ones who are really in the dark, or you get the ones who are a little half-baked pseudo,
Yeah.
so those, you got to watch out for those, because they could actually impede, I think, on the movement. So, and I think moving forward, it's so funny, because I really think that we are at a paradigm shift on our planet. We have been for a while.
Oh
I'd say the
yeah.
last 10-15 years have been that way. And
Mm-hmm.
as things get darker politically, with all these global powers, and financially and economically and even socially, spiritually, I think is going to rise. So it's almost like this is happening here, and either the darker it gets here, the more light as well it's going to get, and the more people are going to have the light in them. It's
Yes.
actually, I think it's a direct consequence to that. So most people look at the world and say it's doom and gloom. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. I think that this is the best time ever to be alive.
Yep.
And it's actually a positive, joyful time. And there's more hope than there's ever been. For
Right,
sure.
because it's like there's higher consciousness and lower consciousness, and you
Yes.
can look at it through whatever lens that you want through the free choice that we have. It's like, do you want to see the shift that's happening? Do you want to
Hmm.
see people who are stepping into their authenticity? Do you want to see the beauty in the world and the good things that are happening, and the fact that there's less violence now than there's been in
Hmm.
a very long time? Yeah, I mean, of course, it's still going on. Or do you want to look at it through the lens of fear, and you want to think things are going to shit, and all of these things that are coming out are mean that the world is terrible? It's like, no, we're expanding into higher consciousness. So all of these things that were in lower places that we didn't have awareness of are starting to come out more and more and be seen by people for the first time. And because maybe they haven't dug into this stuff, or they weren't aware of it before, like I've gone down these rabbit holes so many times over the last like decade, that
Wow.
now I'm seeing it come out, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. This is unfolding. The awareness is there. These things that were in the dark are coming into light so that they can be healed and we can move on. And that is the spreading of higher consciousness. It's the candle in the dark room that lights up everything. And as each person taps into their own version of that, they
Hmm.
become the candle in the dark place wherever they are. And then that spreads to other people, and then it just like keeps moving in that way.
No, I agree. It's actually beautiful, and the more intense it seems out there, actually it's getting more peaceful internally, and amongst this community they're evolving even more. There's even more joy and light that
Mm-hmm.
they're sharing, that sort of spiritual movement is actually, it's strengthening as everything else is getting so chaotic.
For sure.
So it's been an amazing journey for myself, and I think now I'm genuinely meeting so many great souls.
Mm.
When I first moved to LA, it was a mixed bag. It was the good, bad, and the ugly,
Oh my
and
God,
oh
yes.
my, especially the ugly. But
Yeah.
now it's really good people, and especially I mentioned this with this university and all this academic stuff. Now I'm suddenly connecting with a lot of scholars and researchers, people, authors, speakers, especially specifically in philosophy and spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of, I would say, geopolitics too. Like in this area, the great leaders in this area, and there's so many of them. I feel honored that I'm sort of on the same page as them. I'm in the same rooms as them, and I
Mm-hmm.
have my own views on it. And it's amazing to connect and sort of have communicate, have conversations with them
Yeah. It's
about, yeah,
it's cool that this can happen,
yes.
because, back even when I was in high school, like early 2000s or so, these conversations didn't really exist. People thought it was really weird or out there, or, it just wasn't accepted. And in a lot of ways, people were really in the dark, and really indoctrinated in how to think, and a very limited perception of what the world actually is and who they actually are. So it's
Hmm.
really beautiful that we're in the space now where, as we open up, as we step into who we really are, we, like a magnet, start attracting people into our lives that reflect that, who are also on that path, and give us support and make us see like, oh wow, this is happening right now. There's other people out there that are just like me, and you know how this is, because You know, when you and I met, it was like that. Like we both
Yes.
knew we were on the same page, and it's a beautiful feeling when you come across people on your path like that. You know, as you unfold,
Hmm.
synchronicities start to happen, and you start to be like, you've had so many cool synchronicities where you're at the right place, right time, you meet
Hmm.
the right person, it gets you to the next step on
Thing.
your journey,
Yeah.
and life becomes magical in that way. You don't, you kind of trust and you surrender. You're like, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I know it's either going to be a lesson, it's going to be a beautiful experience no matter what it is. And then things start to show up when you surrender and not try to control everything and not try to
Hmm.
like figure it all out in your head like I always tried to do. And it really allows you to be in the magic of life.
Yeah, and for myself personally, with the birthday coming up, I think it's been one of the new, I guess, revelations I've had very recently is to uh, disengage myself from my physical age, and to,
Mm,
because it's one thing to say it as I have, but it's very different to really feel that and be it, where you do disconnect with your biological age and say, no, I'm eternal, I'm timeless, I'm not too young or too old
hmm.
for my aspirations. Things will come in the perfect time. You have
Yep.
to trust that. It's a bit tricky for me because also working in Hollywood, you just have sort of
Yeah.
a window, you know,
Yeah.
where you want to get things done. And when you miss the boat, you kind of miss the boat. It's different for a man. I think you can be 60 and still make it in that way. But for women, it's very cruel, and
Yeah.
nobody can escape that. And you know, I'm very lucky that I look a lot younger than my age, a lot younger, which is why I should get the line. Because I mean, people think I'm like 10 to 15 years younger than my real age, which is amazing. But you know, I have my own anti-aging technology out there, which I personally use, and I'd like to get that out there in the world. But
Yeah.
I think disassociating myself with that ageism is it's not easy, and it's something I'm going through right now. To say, oh, I may be this old, but I've done a lot in some ways, way above my age, beyond my
Yeah.
years, and I have to. And in some ways, maybe I haven't done enough. In terms of, hey, there are kids do who have done more in this field than I have, and I've been at it for a while. I could say the same in that direction too, but to then realize, okay, what's the real path here? I think that's a huge sort of it's like a, you know, conjuncture. I think I'm going
Yeah.
through. Very, it's not easy. It's very
It's a
challenging.
it's a limitation too, though.
Yes.
It's a paradigm that I think needs to
Yes.
go away, and I know it's actually very strong for women.
Yes. Very
But a
much
good
so.
example of this is that there was this video, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, it went viral. It was this guy who appeared to be pretty old.
Oh.
People thought he was like in his 50s or like early 60s. I don't know, maybe you saw this because it showed up everywhere, and this dude was on like Ellen and all
Mm-hmm.
this other mainstream media stuff. But he did this like interpretive dance to a Post Malone song, and he
Okay.
absolutely tore it
Killed
up.
it.
Did you see that?
No, I didn't. I should look it up. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so he just lights up the dance floor. He moves his body like he's a 20-year-old kid. And I love it because he's just a guy that loves dancing, and
Mm-hmm.
he came up with the moves to this song and recorded it. And he's an example of somebody that's like, don't let your mind limit you in the sense of like, oh, I'm 50 years old. I can't dance. I can't break dance. I can't, go to a club and absolutely tear up the dance floor in front of everyone. Like, no, anything that you're desiring, like you can do that right now, and don't put yourself in a box and say that you can. And this guy to me was such a because he's got like this big gray beard and
Mm-hmm.
he just looks like an old man. But then when he dances, it's
Wow.
like he's a 20-year-old guy. It's so cool.
That's so inspirational. I mean, age is just a number. It's just another construct. It's
Yeah,
also very, it's all Maya anyway.
it
It's
really
tricky.
is.
I believe that we have the life that we have so that we can learn the most in the way that we understand. That's why
Hmm.
people's paths are different. Some, it seems cruel. They're, you know, sometimes you meet someone and they're they got divorced and they had cancer in the same year. I mean, it's just horrible things have happened all over. And then you see someone else and they're like, they made billions. And I mean, it goes on and on. So,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all karmic. It's all your own, your soul earned it or didn't earn it on whatever level. And
Yeah.
so when I see people and their lives, good or bad, you can't judge, because I know that karmically it's all perfect. And
Right.
karmically, it's all just and fair, no matter how it seems on the outside. It
Yep.
truly is. They are going through what they need to go through to get the point, and to sort of evolve. And that may be harsh. It may be easy. People often look at me, they don't know me, and they see me from afar, and they just have a lot of preconceived notions about me and my life. And
Mm-hmm.
they're so wrong. They have no clue of my upbringing, or what I've been through in my life. They would not have been able to be in my shoes and survived, I think, the stuff that
Yeah.
I have, because it is so intense. On
Mm-hmm.
You need incredible mental and emotional strength and integrity, I think, to be sane, and to come out positive, because hey, we all survive, but you can turn out to be very bitter and or fearful. But
Yeah.
I've always been ultra positive, despite, and that's why people don't know how uh, hard my path has been, because I'm always smiling and optimistic. And that's a bit, I think it's sad. I think I get shortchanged sometimes because of that.
Oh yeah, of course. That's like the social media world. You
Yeah,
only see the successes. You only see the
yeah.
smiling faces and the accomplishments. You're never seeing. It's the tip of the iceberg. You're never seeing all the shit that you had to go through to get to where you were. And one thing I saw recently that I really resonated with is it was somebody on Instagram, I think, but they said that your higher self will go to great lengths to wake you up. And so
That's right.
these things that happen in your life that seem traumatic or seem like
Yes,
really extreme, whether it's cancer, whether it's like a
yes,
crazy disease or an
yes.
accident or something, you lose your business, whatever it is. It's like all these things are happening to really wake you up to who you are, because it knows from a higher perspective that's the only way that it's going to happen. And you
Mm-hmm.
can either see it from that sense and learn from it and step into that, or you can sink into victim mode and be like, I can't believe this happened to me. And then you'll start recreating more victim patterns and more things will go wrong. And it's like these are just opportunities to keep trying to, it's your higher self, like continually trying to wake you up to the truth of yourself.
Oh my God, there is so much victimization going on around the
Yeah.
world, especially in this country and in this place, and in these industries too. And it's like an entitlement to victimization, I think.
Yeah.
Very scary stuff, and it's sort of overtaken all facets of life. People are so they're looking to be offended, right?
Yeah.
They want to be offended so badly. They're just waiting for you to say that one word, and it's like, wow.
Which is
Uh,
so far away from your spiritual self. It's so ego based and so
yes.
far away from your spiritual self. It's like you forget, like, going back to what we were saying earlier, they're
Hmm.
forgetting in the remembrance. When you're in forget mode
Hmm.
and you're in your ego, you don't realize, like, oh wow, I'm creating every aspect of this experience. I'm the
Hmm.
director of this movie. I'm writing the script constantly, and the way that I think and the perception I'm wearing as I exist in this world is shaping everything around me. My brain is scanning the environments to support the perceptions that I have about everything. And when you're in victim mode, you're just looking constantly for more things to feel victimized, and you're forgetting that you are the creator. You are the person who's writing the story. And do you want to keep writing the chapter on victimization and going deeper into that? Do you want to keep constantly writing that script? Or do you want to be like, all right, done with the victim thing, learn that lesson. What do I
Hmm.
actually want to write right now?
Yeah, it keeps you from growing, but it keeps you from actually living your full life. It keeps you from being happy, because you just want to be, it's a different mentality. And now we're seeing kids who are adopting it, which is scary, because that's what they're being taught at the schools and
Mhm.
universities,
Yeah.
and it's really dangerous. But what's your opinion on this? There is such a divide in the world today. There's like these two sides. Maybe
Mhm.
there's more, but there is a huge divide. I think like we've never seen. And the people pin the divide to certain things or people. That's not what it is. I mean, those are just catalysts, I think I would say, for but I think these divides were brewing under the surface, but I think now they are at the point of no return. And it's like people are taking off their mask now, and so they've been like this all along. It's just that now they are maybe being a little bit open about who they've always been. you
Yeah.
know it's interesting to see, and you see it across the world. It's not just America, it's every country. Politically, every country is divided. This
What do you think that is? What do you think that division is underneath it
um,
all?
for me, I think it's the times. It's so the evolution. Maybe the karma of the planet. So the
Mhm.
evolution of our planet, maybe the samskara of Mother Earth is that at this point in time, this divide is going to happen, because we've
Yeah.
had divides in the past. I think when you look at the world, at least for the last 5,000 years, it's been up, down, collapse. Empires have risen, they've collapsed.
Hmm.
Power has shifted, whatever. It's all like a story. And at this particular, in 2019, there is a particular manifestation to happen. It's happening, and I think it's manifesting in the way of this divide. But I think I think there's people who are saying that they've had enough,
Yeah.
that they don't want to be labeled and belittled and insulted,
Hmm.
and they have self-respect. And this is a nationalistic, these people, and they're saying, no, I'm proud of who I am, and my lineage and my country and what that stands for in the world. And
Hmm.
I'm not going to lose that and bow down to you or someone else. And then it's the other half that sometimes they do have good intentions of trying to be more inclusive and humane, but there is also the flip side, and then the false intentions of the intersectionality and the victimization. It's very toxic. It's
Yeah.
like a cesspool of all things bad, plus also ignorance of how things really work. And then on
Hmm.
top of that, I think that there's a lot of bullying, intimidation, and venom there that they're projecting to people who don't think like them.
Yeah.
So, and this is happening on a global scale, so
You
it's,
know what I think
yeah.
with that? I think it's kind of like it's a symptom,
Yes.
how you'll have a physical symptom for your body when there's a
Mhm.
deeper issue going on. And that symptom shows up, and then you know to treat it, and you know to take care of it so that it doesn't turn into a bigger issue. And I think
Mhm.
when it comes to this divide, and because there's division in so many ways, which is we know perpetuated a
Yeah.
lot by politicians and
Yes.
media and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that when you get to a level of like intense division and separation,
Hmm.
that ultimately breeds and makes space for unity, because you get to a
Yeah.
point where, like what you said, you're like no more. Like
Yes.
we hit
Yeah.
that point finally where there's
Yeah.
so much division, so much separation, that we see how toxic it is,
Yeah.
and how far from the organic truth of the, like,
Hmm.
because here's the thing, we're all individual cells living on this body of earth, and we're either a
Hmm.
cancer or we're like a white blood cell that's actually
Yes.
contributing and helping. And I think once people start to, this all is starting to come more into awareness through social media and how
Hmm.
connected we are through the internet, that we'll collectively get to a place. Maybe it'll take some kind of bigger, crazier event, but we'll be like, all right, we got to come together. We can't do this
Hmm.
shit anymore. And you can't really get there without this stuff,
That's true. It's a catalyst, right? Because
Yeah.
I think it's like everyone's indifferent, and then some catastrophe happens. They're divided, and then the
Hmm.
division brings people together. If you didn't have the catastrophe, you just have indifference all along. I think that's what's
Exactly.
happening, and we have forgotten our oneness and the
Yes.
divine connectedness, because we've forgotten that the division is happening. And I think ultimately the division will get so bad where there is no place to go but up, and that's
Right.
when you realize how connected you are. And I think we have some good uh, and then it's sort of upcoming, but we have some good teachers
Yeah.
at this time who are talking about the right stuff. And
It,
in these crazy times, they are talking about oneness and stuff. So it's great.
yeah. And think about your own life too, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
we have our individual lives, but we're also part of the collective,
Oh, yeah.
co-creating this whole thing. So it's like
Yes.
in my own life, if I didn't hit rock bottom, if I
Hmm.
didn't get to the point where I was so sick of
Yeah.
my creations and so tired of replaying the same shit over and over again, that I had nowhere else to go but up. So
Yes.
individually, I sank to the lowest low, my rock bottom. And
Hmm.
so we're kind of getting to that point collectively where
Yes.
we're all reaching that rock bottom. So then we'll be like, okay, we have nowhere to go but up. We got to do this. We don't have any other choice now. And it's funny because it's like it's the, and I might be getting the order of this wrong, the microcosm of the
Hmm.
macrocosm. So it's like
Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah.
as each individual person
Yes.
experiences that and starts to project up,
Hmm.
it's like then collectively we'll all start doing that, and we'll all go through that rock bottom place together and be like, hey, we're all in this shit, we're all on this journey, and we got to come together to make this work. And it's kind of happening in the space of environmental stuff,
Yes.
you know, like a lot of people are fired up about the earth right now and taking
Yeah.
care of it and being a conscious steward for it, and
Hmm.
a lot of kids are uh, being very loud voices and
Yeah.
advocates for earth and taking care of the earth. And
Hmm.
so because we're getting to that rock bottom point where shit's starting to break down and
Yeah.
we're not being sustainable, and we're seeing a future where like we might run out of resources type of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
So it's manifesting it through that sense right now, and then like I just think it's going to keep going in every area.
Now, yeah, the climate change, climate control is an interesting thing because you've got different layers there too.
Yeah, there's a lot
What
of layers.
what's your personal opinion? I mean, are they are those crazies, I guess, who are like, oh, it's all doom and gloom, and
Hmm.
the world's going to end in 10 years or something like that. And
Yeah.
then there are the others who don't believe in climate change at all. And I think somewhere in the middle is the real truth, because I
Yes.
don't believe it's either of those. It is not the 12-year end. I think you'd be naive to believe that, because the Earth's been what 65,000 years at least, and
Yep.
with life at least 7 or 10,000. What 12 years? It's all gonna like. Don't you think that Mother Nature is a little bit more resilient
Resilient.
than that?
Well,
You
the
know?
first anatomically structured humans like that you and I are, they
Yeah.
science shows us that they showed up 200,000 years ago. So we've been
Okay.
around
Fair
for a
enough.
long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And I think it's so funny because I've had this conversation a lot lately with environmental consultants that
Mhm.
travel the world and do
Yes.
all these different things, and my personal view on it, just from what I've seen, and
Mm.
I've dug a little bit deep
Mhm.
into it. I think we're in a cycle.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's the end of a 12,000 year, whatever
Yep.
you want to call it, type of cycle where there's global warming that occurs
Yes.
before a global cooling.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, of course, climate change is happening. I don't
Yeah.
think
I mean,
anyone's really denying that climate change is
yeah.
happening. I think
Yeah.
people are getting labeled who are saying this whole global warming thing
Like,
that people are talking about
yeah.
isn't necessarily the case. There's a global cooling, maybe a mini ice age that's about to show up.
Hmm.
And then they're getting labeled as climate change deniers. And it's like, no, I'm just seeing this in a different way. I'm not saying
Yeah.
global warming is going to continue and all of the shit's going to happen that they've said is going to happen. It's like, no, climate change is always occurring. It's a cyclical earth that we live
Yes.
in. And yes, we need to come together and create more sustainable ways
Yeah.
and not destroy and devour
Yeah.
the earth like
Because we are doing that. We are
we're
as a
parasites.
as a planet, and we've always done that. But I think it's a little worse now. We are more selfish than we've ever been
Yeah,
as a people, on this earth. And some more than others. So we can do better, I think. But the one thing is that
100%.
when I hear, uh, I mean, I think there's too much focus sometimes on, like, it's great that these young kids go on about it. That's fine, but you can't put the onus on. You can't say, "Oh, America, you got all these cars or whatever. You people are the bad guys. You need to really, you don't pick on one person and say that, hey, you're the enemy because of you. This is happening." No, I mean, if you think about it, you can do your little bit. All the little bits that even in this country, what we do, it doesn't compare to look at the pollution around the world in terms of, look at China, right? This is the manufacturing hub of the world.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of pollution that they emit and what that does to climate change, it is, I mean, what America does is minuscule, to be honest.
Yeah, it's
So
gross.
what each of us could do our bit to maybe better the situation, it is so tiny. Yes, we all have to, as 7 billion people, we, of course, we can do better, but
Mm-hmm.
don't also forget about that, because that should be curbed. And I don't know if it can, because that's industrialization, that's industry. I mean, you got to find a green solution for that problem. I don't know if there is one yet. I'm sure there is one in the future, but maybe not right now.
Do you think this, or do you agree with this? I personally believe that we are one with the earth. We're tied to it energetically. We're symbiotic with it. And I think as we elevate our consciousness and we start to project out thoughts and feelings and emotions of love and unification and compassion and forgiveness and kindness, all of these higher vibrational energies, I think that in itself heals the earth. So as people evolve their consciousness and step into these higher frequencies, that heals the earth in itself. So it's like the earth corresponds to that. And of course, the physical sense of taking care of the planet and, cleaning up the pollution and the garbage and all that stuff is great. But I think ultimately, as we evolve our consciousness, that's going to help heal the world. And then inherently, we're just going to be more responsible caretakers of this garden that we've been gifted with for this physical life.
Well, that's a great point. I think that collective conscious feeling of being a part, and we are so tied in, we are off the earth anyway. I mean, she's the mother, right? So we can't go astray too far. I think the collective conscious also brings, increases the vibration of people who are involved in that. And they are, of course, very mindful, and that the more people who do that, the more mindful we become. And collectively, if we do that, if enough people come together to do that, even if you don't believe in the energetic connection, like just the love and the peace that's emitted could resolve things, our behavior will change. And we will do better. So that's
I was just gonna say, why do you think that we're so tied to nature? It's like the tree. When you go outside and you look at the trees, those are the things that are allowing us to be here, and to like they're taking in our toxins that we're breathing out, and they're putting out air that allows us to live on this planet. And it's like we're so connected at a higher level. They're the only reason that we can be here.
That's true. We're alive because of the sun and the oxygen, right? And and it's there's no other reason for us to be alive. And I think we constantly forget that. And then when we go on deforesting and all this sick stuff, it's really bad.
It's everything. It's anti-human.
Anti-life, right? Yeah, anti-earth. Now,
for profits.
You're right. I'm very proud to say that in my religion, in Hinduism, it's actually the only religion in the world that actually has as its one of its fundamental principles is to have a symbiotic relationship with nature. So, Hinduism promotes vegetarianism, of course, and ahimsa, which is non-violence, not just to animals, but also as other human beings too. But another principle is you have to be kind to nature. It specifically, it's one of the, if you had like 10 things about Hinduism, the tenets, one of them is for nature. And in India, we've always had this strong connection, and people, and it's such a green country. It's incredible. It's an agricultural country anyway. That's why for us, we're all vegetarian, because I think animals mean a lot to us, because they give us our food and livelihood. So we would not kill and eat them. So it's sort of it's a big deal that now we do have other religions who live in India, and they're actually not just consumers of it, they get involved in the slaughter business. So it's politically, it's a big deal, where I think the country really wants to crack down on that, and they should. But this is all political though, because you got parties that for votes, they will appease these groups. That's what's going on in India. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But I hope it changes. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned this earlier. I think we're in a cool space right now where these ancient technologies, this
Yes.
ancient wisdom is starting
Yes.
to come back to the
Oh,
planet.
this is, now you're talking about something I'm so passionate about.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It is, and isn't it ridiculous because they've been around for thousands of years. They've always been there.
Yeah.
Why is it that now suddenly the West is, coming to know about it? So yoga, right? It's been around for 5,000 years, if not longer. It
Hmm.
documented, and it's only in the last 50 years that suddenly it's a thing. Come on, this it should not be the case. That is very sad that that's the reality. I'm very happy that it's huge. It's
Hmm.
a global phenomena, but come on, it's been around forever. Ayurveda, 5,000-year-old science. Why is it so hot only now? And even that is, a lot of it is they are appropriating parts of Ayurveda and then calling it something else, or not even calling it Ayurveda. Well, that bugs me a lot. So there's a lot of layers to this ancient wisdom area, which I love. I'm so because I'm very connected to that, and part of my dharma, I think, is also to kind of teach that and share that around too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think people are really smart, and I think there's people that are aware of this ancient
Hmm.
technology, how powerful it is. They see that it is
Yeah.
awakening and showing back up in the world. So
Yes.
they're getting ahead of that, and then they're marketing that and making
Yeah.
money. They're like, oh, we can make
Yeah.
money off this because this is the energy that
Yeah.
here, and people are starting to like vibe with that.
Yeah.
How can we, you know, put this in media to market it, make a ton of
Yeah.
money off it because it's going to be here. We can't stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's in the same thing has happened with the plant medicine world, like
Hmm.
with
Ayahuasca and
ayahuasca
all that stuff.
and
That's been
peyote
around for a long time too. Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
And but now it's become this industry where it's
It's
like
like
almost
it's a
popular
hip.
culture.
And also yeah, it's okay to make money out of these ancient. There's nothing wrong with that,
Right.
like I'm talking about having maybe a beauty line or whatever. It would be the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's fine, but I think where the bone that I have with is when there is when it's appropriated and not given the respect or the
Yes.
credibility, where you
Yep.
don't talk about the source, and
Yep.
that happens a lot, sadly, with anything that's Vedic. I've seen this a lot. So much comes from that area. It's taken, it's even in spirituality, even with meditations and different types of yoga. Well, yoga is a bit tricky because you got the name yoga, which is, you cannot remove that. But there's so many other techniques where, even breathing techniques, so much. These are ancient Vedic practices. Now someone's taken bits and pieces of it, rehashed it and calling it something else. And not only that, they're not giving the necessary credibility, like this is where I got it from. Not only that, the worst is when they actually say it's not that, it's better. Or I mean, you see it a lot, and when it happens in academia too, with uh, philosophies and viewpoints and stuff.
How many
And
people do you think do yoga that have any idea what it actually is, like what it means, the Sanskrit
very
meaning of
few
it?
people
Yeah.
know what it actually is.
Yeah.
Many people do it. I'm happy to say that they do it, but
Hmm.
it's the sad side of yoga today, right? On the one hand, it's great because I would say that India's largest export, funnily enough, is spirituality, which is
Hmm.
great. But it's the wrong. I mean, it's not happening in the. It's not regulated. It's not organic. You got a lot of half-baked teachers and students going around
Yeah.
pretending to be yogis. It's also very delusional too. You
Hmm.
can be delusional about it.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's so important to keep and withhold the sacredness of these teachings.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you're, we're talking about all this stuff, and it's important for, let's say you're doing a talk on some of this stuff, or maybe you
Hmm.
become a teacher in some
Yes.
capacity, a spiritual teacher. You can't control what other people are doing, and if they are taking the sacredness out of it, but you can. So it's like
Yeah,
you have the power
I can
to,
honor it.
you can
Because
honor it. Yeah, and that's huge.
this, what, it is universal knowledge. Absolutely, this is for the world. Is always has been. Is
Right.
always will be. But I think some respect and humility to the source is needed, and to cite it properly. I think that's missing, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem with it happens everywhere, but specifically with the West, towards the East. That's it happens a lot. So you need to be smart and sort of regulated in a way where you can't just take stuff, or else there's going to be lawsuits, or I mean,
Yeah,
this is
don't
all
forget your
legalized.
core.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
forget why you even started in the first place. Don't forget where you got these things from. They were gifted to you, and you're just using it to give to other people
Mhm.
what you were getting from it.
Yeah,
It was never. I mean, we're kind of in a world now where it's like no ideas are really original
it's all
anymore.
transferred, right?
It's
We're
all,
just
yeah, and you're just
sharing it. Absolutely, it's
we're
like a
just
baton,
aggregating.
right?
Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
We're just aggregating information, and then we're putting it through our own unique filter, and then sharing it in that way. You know,
It's
and
true.
that's like it's a lot of what you're doing, and
Mhm.
I think going back to the Dharma side of it,
Mm.
um, it seems like it's so important to connect to that in whatever way that you can, because I think the depression and the anxiety and the suicide and the drug addiction, to me, is all a result of coming off your path to your
Yes,
Dharma.
or not even knowing what your path is. I would say most people don't know what their purpose is, no matter how simple it may be.
Right.
They don't know why they're here, and even on that, they have gone off tangent, and they think that life is just you wake up, you work, have fun, and get married, have kids, and then you die. That's not what life is about, and they miss
No.
the real joy, and they think that gambling and drinking and drugs and all these things will give them. I think they're looking for true fulfillment,
Yeah.
which they don't get from these things, but these things do give you a temporary high,
Yeah.
and they want that temporary high to last, so they
Hmm.
keep doing it over and over again, so because they hope that it's going to turn into like samadhi, right? That's perpetual bliss. They hope that, oh, if I just do it every day, I'm going to be blissful, I'm going to be happy every day. Well, it
Hmm.
doesn't work that way, because it finishes, it ends, you go down to the floor, then
Yeah.
it, and then eventually you'll become immune to it, where you can do all the drinking you want, you ain't going to be happy. And I think that's where addiction and abuse comes in. And I think the world is, and then of course the pharmaceutical stuff too, painkillers and
Oh man,
antidepressants, that's another
that's a
industry.
whole other
People are,
podcast.
yeah, people are so addicted and stuff, but they're searching for genuine fulfillment and peace.
Yeah.
And that's, my book originally was to like address that, like what are some things that you can do for yourself to experience a fulfilled, peaceful, and joyful life.
Mm.
So I'm excited about the book. I think it could change from like the tools could come from one place or from across the board. That's the only difference.
Hmm.
Maybe with some guidance, I'll get that sorted. But I'm excited about the other books too.
Do you
Uh,
think any of those books are? Do you see yourself finishing any of those in 2019 or more into like
Oh yeah,
2020?
the first one, this Eternal Gift, is definitely ready to be finished and published this year.
Okay.
I think I sort of I channel when I write. So if I'm in the
Yeah.
right space, it just comes. I could write a whole book in one sitting.
Wow.
People have done that. I could do that too. But you have to be switched on. And I think instead of just writing and writing, uh, you want to get the context right, because there's no point writing a whole book and then have to rewrite it, because I know a lot of professional authors and they spend a lot of time rewriting and retweaking, which,
Perfectionism.
well, the publisher says you got to
Okay. Yeah.
change the tense. And so for me, I'd rather have some of these conversations before. And
Hmm.
because with my book, I always thought it was going to be one way. It's only very recently that I think my mindset changed a little bit. I evolved in my own knowledge, and I thought maybe this should be, and then there's another book that might be, is definitely to do with a particular tradition,
Hmm.
so like more specializing in, hey, this is the ideology, and this is what they're saying, this is a good framework I think is ideal,
Hmm.
that, and it's more, I think, consistent and congruent, and
Yeah.
easier for people to make sense of.
Yeah.
So
Because it's
yeah.
like the way that you make sense of things. because there's a lot of complex information out there.
Oh yeah.
It can get very dense, but then, you forming your own understanding of that, making it more simplified and
Hmm.
like I said earlier, putting it through your filter and then sharing it through your style of writing and your message and the way that you speak can really help to condense that for people and make sense of it and see if it's something that vibes with them and something
Hmm.
that resonates, deep within them.
That's true. I was curious. I wanted to ask you a question regarding the political situation with freedom of speech. I mean, there's so much going on right now.
Mm,
Oh my God. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think it's under threat? Clearly, it is. But I mean,
yeah.
what do you see, and what's the solution, and why do you think that's the case? And if people need to realize that there is a serious curbing going on here.
Yeah. I think, to me, it feels like this desperate attempt to stop the
People from
momentum of
speaking. Yes,
everything that we've been
yes,
talking about.
yes, yes.
It's
Yeah,
trying to limit people and trying to keep them in a small space, keep them in
yeah.
their
In a
box.
box. Yep.
And it's being, and anytime I see something that's being perpetuated by the mainstream media, of course
Hmm.
there's an agenda behind it. Of course there's a deeper purpose to it. And it's like a last ditch effort to me to try to convince people, try to persuade the minds of people that they have to be careful about what they say. They have to limit their speech, and governments are going to get involved
Hmm.
to police that. And again, I think it's all part of the evolution. I think it's part of this global drama we find ourselves in, where this will go up a little
Oh
bit,
yeah.
and then the pendulum will swing back the other
Yes.
way, and people will be like, that is fucking ridiculous
Ridiculous. I
that
think it's
you're
already happening
doing
because
this.
it's okay to say, okay, you have to be politically whatever, but the problem is that it's hypocritical. It's not. So
Yeah.
you can't say this, but you can say this. Like
Yeah.
freedom of speech is it's not being curbed here. But I mean, come on, that's you can't do that. Like if you want to make it fair, make it across the board.
And
But
you
it
know
can't.
this,
Yeah,
just the person that you are
yeah,
and the person that I am, the more evolved you get and the
yeah,
more higher consciousness you allow in, you see how silly that is.
yeah.
And you laugh at it and you're like, look at these humans that are
People.
telling each other what they can and can't say. And it's like, as long as you're not threatening someone or like, verbally abusing them in some kind of way and it's not harming someone, say whatever the fuck you want.
That's
Like,
true.
that's
But
why
but
we're
you
here.
but for yourself, with your global views on various things, do you ever sometimes think, especially living in this part of the world, you know what, let me just keep that to myself, I don't want to go public on this? Or are you like very, hey, I'm going to be me in the public domain, and this is who I am, and this is what you get, take it or leave it?
That's such a good question, and I have struggled with that.
Hmm.
And
It's you have to temper. It's not that easy,
knowing your audience,
because the backlash can be bad, because you're dealing with these types who are very quick to judge and
yeah,
jump on you. They could portray you as something that you're not.
for
And I
sure.
think once you have that labeling put on you by whoever, it's very hard to shake that off. So it's better to, it's like I always I have a friend from New York, he's known me for years, and he always says, I don't know uh, your political opinions and your preferences, because on Facebook and social media, it's all work related or it's social stuff. You never talk about politics. I actually don't know which side you're on any level. And I
Mm,
was thinking that's actually smart in a way, because I'm not opening myself up for attack here.
yeah,
But I mean, that was several years ago. Now I think even I'm changing, where I'm like, at some point you got to give in and say, you know what, I'm sorry, but this is wrong, and I'm with this person, or I'm going to stand over here because this is ludicrous. And I
mm-hmm.
think we're starting to see that, where you can't just be on the fence anymore, even if it
No,
means that someone's going to maybe view you as a certain way. You got to be honest. And if something enrages you and you think is really not right, I've started doing this, with some global things that have been going on that I felt were very wrong or whatever.
yeah,
I voiced it, and you can see that people are a bit shocked. Maybe they didn't expect that someone like myself to put that out there. But
mm-hmm.
the truth is the truth. Yeah.
I feel like in a lot of ways, this life, this whole thing we find ourselves in is very much like a school.
Yes.
It's funny because we mimic spirituality and nature so much. The internet is a microcosm of, the cosmic connection to all that is, all the information available. And in certain ways, it's like we go through these different types of lessons in this life. And I think one of them, a curriculum, a course
Mhm.
that we could be taking is standing in your truth, in the face of a lot of adversity, a lot of people that might disagree with you or maybe not like you and, talk badly about you. That's part of the course. Like for you to actually learn what it is to stand in your truth and your authenticity and not sway from that, and to really root yourself deep into that and have a strong foundation, you have to go. That's a prerequisite. You got to go through all the shit of people, bashing you, not agreeing with you, not liking you. And that is like, you move through that and then you graduate the course. Like, oh, I just got an A in standing in my truth, or I dropped out because it got too tough. And now I'm going to
Mhm.
just kind of agree with people, or I'm not going to, talk about things that I'm passionate about. I'm just going to kind of stay neutral.
Mhm. Wow, it's a changing world, and I think this is a huge year for the world, for our planet. It's
Yep.
gonna. I know personally for me, it's the probably the biggest and best year of my life. I just know that something huge is coming,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe my truly coming into my own. I say that
Yeah.
every year, but I think this year is a little different. I think the churning is very intense.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it seems like you almost know when things
mhm.
get more intense and you're going
Yes.
through a lot of shit, it's
Yeah.
birthing that
Yes.
like
Birth
next big part.
growing pains, right? I think that's what
Yes.
I've had for a little while, a couple of years, I would say, especially last year. But
Mm-hmm.
now it's coming to the full now.
The
So
fruition.
yeah.
Yeah. I so vibe with you on that, and I feel that for myself as well, and I see that for a lot of people, starting to come out of these growing pains and actually into who they are, and opening up to the life they always knew that was possible for them. And like we said earlier, when you surrender and you trust, you don't hold things in this little limited view. You open yourself up to the greatest possibilities, and your limited mind, your brain is based on your past experiences. It doesn't know anything new.
Hmm.
So when you trust that and you put yourself out into all possibilities, this or something better, you can have things show up that you never could have possibly imagined for yourself, that is so much better than anything you ever could have thought of.
That's true. Just be yourself. And I think I know for myself, the greatest lesson has been to trust the universe and trust the source, the divine source, that it loves you and cares about you and wants
Mm,
you to be the best and happiest and most fulfilled.
yes.
And you need to just believe that there is some energy, entity out there that really wants you to be all that you came here to be, and
Right.
get out of the way and let it happen, because it's doing something it's pushing you in that direction, so don't
Yeah.
fight it. Yeah.
It's like I'm choosing to believe that the universe's number one intention is for everything to expand and evolve, and that
Mhm.
includes all of us. And uh, that's why I'm choosing to see everything that happens in life as a lesson and something that's happening for me, rather than woe is me, victim.
Uh-huh.
This is all random. Like it's all bullshit. You can see it that way, but where
Mhm.
is that getting you? So I'm gonna keep wearing the goggles of everything's happening for a reason. I'm connected to something greater than
Yes.
myself, and it's all unfolding in that way.
That's
Wow,
true.
we could seriously keep this podcast going for
Okay, it's
5
almost two
hours.
hours right, or
Holy
maybe an
shit,
hour. Oh
yeah.
my god.
So hey, I
Yeah.
usually like to end these
Yes.
podcasts with, is there anything that's there for you right now in terms of a message you would want to share from your heart with the world? Anyone who's listening, is there anything that's there for you that maybe you want to put out there, something that's on your heart that you want to share with people?
Yes, just want to say thank you so much for having me on your beautiful, amazing creation. I'm honored to be here, honored to have people tune in. I just want to inspire people to listen to their authentic self, have self love and self respect. Be kind to yourself. I think we could all do with more kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And, just trust that it's all going to work out. Be the best that you can be, and live the life that you were meant to live. So just
Yeah.
know that you're love and light, and that you're connected to the divine source, and never forget that.
Yeah. And you are a perfect embodiment of that, like with just being involved in so many different things. You didn't limit yourself and say, oh, I
Mhm.
have to be just this one thing.
Yeah.
No, you're like 20 different things, and it's all working out for you. And you just keep saying yes to it. So
Yeah, it's
you,
challenging too. Trust me, it's not
I
easy.
bet
Oh my
managing your
God.
time
But
is probably
it
crazy.
is who I am, you know, so I can't be any, I'd get too bored, I think, if I was just one thing. So this is,
Yeah.
I've chosen this life, this
Yeah.
path, and I made my bed, so I have to sleep in it now.
Yeah. Well, you're an expander for me. When ever since the time that we had our first conversation, I was like, wow, I've all of the so many things that she's
Mm,
doing are things I've wanted to do, and I've just kept myself stuck with how am I going to do all this, and just rather than like this desire is here for a reason,
mm.
and I just got to trust that it's going to happen in whatever way it will, and so it's always great meeting people like you to expand that limitation and to like show you what's possible.
And it's like, I have that same view too about, I mean, even I've also limited myself. So it's all very relative, and we can always do more. I think you have to just have the assurance that everyone, especially in this world, even the ones who have supposedly made it, even on a daily basis, even they're wondering, what do I do next, or how do I get there?
Hmm.
Everyone has challenges, everyone has rejections, things don't work out, they have conflicts, they've got they lose friends, the relationships turn sour.
Hmm.
Everyone has this, whether you're beginning or you're absolutely at the top of the game. I think we all have a lot of challenges, especially in this industry. I mean, the spiritual world, I mean, but that's the
Yeah.
beauty of it. It means that we're evolving, we're vulnerable, we're human, we're
Mm.
open to, sensitivities of life. And we are, I think we let ourselves be affected in a good way. We let ourselves be touched by others and the world. And that's a beautiful thing.
It is. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Preity, for coming on here and sharing your medicine and your wisdom with everybody and being the expander in a lot of ways. And just for people to kind of follow up with you
Yes.
and check out your work, where's the best place to go for that, for
Okay,
your
great.
stuff?
Thank you for that. So for me, please, connect with me on Facebook. It's Preity Upala, PreityUpala. My Twitter handle is Preity Upala as well, but with two U's. And I mean, if you just look me up, you'll find. And I have an Instagram. It's Preityu. But my website is going to be up and running soon. It's just my name, preetyupala.com. And hopefully I'll have and I have my own YouTube channel, which is also my name, and I hope to get more active and put a lot more videos out there, because I used to be, and then I stopped. I did other things. But please look out for my radio show, which is on iHeartRadio, called The Eternal Hour.
Yes.
And my book will be coming out, and I'm putting together a spiritual TV show too, and all these things, hopefully. But just reach out, please say namaste and hello. I love to hear from people and sort of chat and kind of brainstorm with their spiritual and philosophical views on life. It really
Hmm.
what keeps me alive.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I really admired about you. You're very open with all this, very, very accessible and willing to have those conversations and keep an open mind. And that's a really awesome quality to have.
Awesome, great, and thank you for inviting me. It was meant to be.
It was. It really was. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you, everybody, for listening. So much love to everybody out there. I hope that some of this landed for you, or at least planted some kind of seed, or maybe caused some sort of different thinking or perspective shift in any kind of way. But thank you for checking this out, and make sure to go check out Priyati's stuff. And she's got a lot of cool things that are about to take place and already have taken place. So yeah, I'm excited for the future. I think a lot of good things are coming. It's
Thank you
going to be
so
an
much.
awesome thing.
Great
Yeah.
to reconnect. Thank you.
All right, everybody. We'll see you later.
Namaste.
Namaste.